My father blamed my sister for our mom's death for years, but when my daughter called me Daddy, he broke down in regret. My father always put the blame for my mother's passing squarely on my sister. Now, with my little sister calling me Daddy, a wave of regret has washed over him. I'm a 24-year-old man, the older brother to my 5-year-old sibling, Belle. I've always been the primary caregiver for her. My parents were barely teenagers, 15 and 16, when they had me. Even as a child, I sensed their unspoken regret. After my birth, both my mother and father were essentially cut off by their families. My mother left high school to care for me, while my father worked 2 jobs to support us, yet we still couldn't afford our own place. We lived with my mother's older sister until I was 9. Eventually, my father earned his GED, secured a better job, and we moved out. Despite improved living conditions, it was clear they felt their lives were derailed because of me. Any typical childhood mischief from me would be met with accusations of ingratitude, given their sacrifices. Even when I was well-behaved, genuine affection was scarce. New clothes were a rarity. My wardrobe came from Goodwill, and they rarely bought me anything nice unless it was absolutely necessary for events like birthdays, parties, or meeting friends. My birthdays were minimal celebrations, a single cupcake and 1 gift, never what I truly desired. As a child, I longed for their love, but growing older, I accepted it wouldn't come and found a quiet peace with that. I suppose somewhere along the way, my parents, especially my mother, noticed my detachment and started treating me better in my teen years. But by then, I was no longer the child pleading for their affection. My feelings toward them became neutral, almost like we were strangers. We never truly connected. They provided the bare minimum and rarely engaged in meaningful conversation or quality time. They knew nothing about me, so their sudden attempts at parenting felt incredibly awkward. When I was 18, my mother became pregnant. I believe this marked their abandonment of trying to mend things with me. They had a chance to start fresh with a new child. They didn't treat me poorly, but it felt as though we were merely strangers coexisting under the same roof. At 19, my mother gave birth to a girl, but sadly, she didn't survive due to complications. This shattered my father. He not only resented my lack of overwhelming sadness, she had barely been a mother to me, but also blamed his daughter for his wife's death. He was rarely home after that, leaving me to care for my sister. I had to take a break from college. I'd come home to Belle screaming with hunger, her diaper unchanged, while my father was out drinking. I became Belle's full-time caregiver, confronting my father repeatedly, but he'd only become angry, often suggesting I leave Belle at a fire station. Eventually, I stopped trying to force him into being a father. Despite everything, I adored Belle. She was the sweetest, most charming child, almost always smiling, and surprisingly, she slept through the night. Once she was old enough, I enrolled her in daycare and resumed my education, working night shifts. I always kept a significant portion of my afternoons free to spend with her. She knew I was her brother, but as she grew, she instinctively sought out my father, trailing him around the house. That, of course, quickly ended after he lashed out, and she began to fear him. It became clear she saw me as her parental figure. When she started preschool, I learned she was telling people I was her father. I never addressed it directly until she handed me a Father's Day card she made. At that point, I told her she could call me Dad if she wished, and she has ever since. My father eventually found a girlfriend, which seemed to prompt a change in him. He stopped drinking, got a better job, and started covering most of the household bills, apart from my agreed contribution. He never really made an effort to be a father to Belle, though he did start having breakfast with us, a quiet affair punctuated only by Belle and my conversations. A few months ago, on Belle's birthday, I planned a party for her, inviting her preschool class. My father attended, apparently at his girlfriend's encouragement, as she seemed eager to meet Belle. While opening gifts, I surprised Belle with one of those kids' electric cars. She shrieked, hugged me tightly, declared her love, and called me Daddy. After the party, with Belle fast asleep, my father confronted me, demanding to know what the hell happened. I feigned confusion until he yelled, asking why his daughter was calling me Daddy. I asked if he truly didn't know and reminded him that I was the one who raised her, bought her things, celebrated her firsts, and never abandoned her. He fell silent, then went to bed. Since then, he's tried to play the father, attempting to talk to her. But he's a stranger to her. Belle, being a sweet child, humored his conversations, but her awkwardness was palpable, and it clearly pained him. As selfish as it sounds, I don't want their relationship to improve. Just as she sees me as her dad, I see her as my daughter. I've graduated college, and am now looking for a better job so Belle and I can move into our own place. I might be seen as a bad person for relishing my father's misery and regret at having squandered his chance at a relationship with his daughter, but I know I'll never be as awful as he was. Thank you all for the support and guidance. As some suggested, I might delete this post soon to prepare for a potential custody battle. I'll use the advice you've given. I know sharing this here was a risk, but I've never had anyone to talk to about all of this before, so it felt good to finally unburden myself. A marriage is unraveling. My wife and I were high school sweethearts, both 40 now, having been together for 25 years. We have 2 children, aged 5 and 6. For the past 5 years, I've felt our connection was rooted more in shared history than a present bond. Then, in 2023, I met my current girlfriend. I know there's a 12-year age difference, but I met her at work. She's beautiful and captivating, and I saw her as the change I craved. Instead of ending things respectfully with my wife, I cheated, and I was caught. My wife reacted with incredible grace. She simply didn't want us together anymore. This was a year ago. I moved out of our house and rented an apartment. We haven't initiated divorce proceedings, though I don't want to, and neither of us had been discussing it. My girlfriend, however, is unhappy about this, mainly because I left our large house, which was originally mine, to my wife and daughters. I inherited it from my grandparents and parents, and its value is significant now. My girlfriend believes it's my family home, and for me, yes, my family lives there. But my girlfriend means that my wife would have no claim to it in a divorce. 3 weeks ago, my girlfriend and I were dropping off our daughters with their mother. My girlfriend, against my wishes, started talking to my wife about the house. My wife looked confused, stating the house was hers and her daughter's. My girlfriend then asserted it was mine, and it was time to move on. My wife responded by telling my girlfriend to mind her own business. My girlfriend became angry, calling my wife a bitter hag because she was old. My wife just smiled and asked if age was her only redeeming quality, adding that it wouldn't last. She then said she'd rather be her 80-year-old self than my girlfriend's 20-year-old self. My wife wasn't angry or resentful. She isn't even old. She's 40, like me, and very beautiful. I don't know what my girlfriend was thinking. I felt so ashamed and angry with myself. My girlfriend's behavior was immature and embarrassing. I've been unhappy for months, but if I end things now, it means I've hurt my family for absolutely no reason. My wife called me the next day, suggesting we should probably start talking about a divorce. I broke down crying the moment we hung up. Now, every time I see her, I just want to hold her and cry, thinking about us at 80, together, just as we always envisioned when we saw elderly couples holding hands. I've realized I'd rather have my 80-year-old wife than any 20-year-old, but I've utterly ruined that future.